Assalamu alaikum, guys. Mental health is a serious topic, an important topic, and generally, that's the Bakhur starting off there. Frankincense invites the angels, pushes away the jinn. So, I'm joined today with my wife, Myra, and we're going to look over an event that took place last week at the Hub in Sheffield, where Brother Zahir from Afia Healing came and delivered a talk.
Is what creates stress as the result of the inability to predict the outcome of or cope with different situations or thoughts. So what is stress? Reaction, what else? What is stress?
Is stress like a defense mechanism?
It can be a defense. Yeah, so why would you have to defend yourself?
Your body feels like it's getting attacked.
Coping, which is also based in fear. Right? So you can see you're trying to cope with what is going to happen. So it's a fear of the future, fear of how things might turn out. So for the most part, that's how we live our life, isn't it? What's going to happen tomorrow? What if? What if this goes wrong? What if that goes wrong? And just
Stress. What if this goes wrong? What if that goes wrong? Are they generally the type of questions people pose?
I think naturally, most of us people, we do worry about what if I lose my job? What if, somebody passes away? What if I get robbed or attacked or
Whether it's
anything.
likely or not,
Yeah,
even if it's not likely.
yeah, anything is likely to happen, absolutely anything. But when we're scared and then the anxiety builds up, then I guess we're scared, aren't we? Then the stress kicks in, the anxiety kicks in because we're worried about the future.
So should people not be scared then?
For me personally, I find that because, well, for both of us really, we both try, and most of our friends as well, I guess, we try to make sure that we're in alignment with Islamic beliefs. So what does Allah tell us? Allah wants us to rely on Him. And when do we know that maybe, well, for me personally, when I'm feeling anxious, I realize actually, am I finding it a bit hard to rely on Allah? What's going on for me? Why am I stressed? What am I worried about? And then I often need a reminder of, well,
So
everything.
therefore,
Mhm.
stress and anxiety is a lack of belief. Was that a lack of belief?
It becomes a test for us. We can't necessarily say that it's a lack of iman or weak iman because
Even non-Muslims are people without faith of it, and they get over it as well, don't they?
yeah, but because I'm Muslim, because most of my clients are actually at the moment all my clients are Muslim, turning back to Allah and placing the trust in Allah, learning to do that really helps. And often what we find is that there's a reason why it's often connected to trauma that we're not able to place that trust. What happened in our life that made us feel like, actually, for example, with me, I moved a lot as a child. So now moving to Pakistan was quite stressful for me. So it was important for me to check, okay, so what is it about moving that was really stressful? What trauma do I still hold about moving house? So it's important to always check our triggers and find the root cause of them and resolve it so that we can be free in our lives.
So we'll listen to another segment now.
that fear alone does what to you? It affects your breathing, yes? Affects your mood, affects your relationship. Fight or flight mode kicks in, right? I don't know what's going to happen, so now it overwhelms you. Anxiety is also a psychological and physiological state. So it affects your brain, it affects your body, it affects your emotions, affects our behaviors. These components combine to create an unpleasant feeling that is typically associated with uneasiness, fear, or worry.
So it affects our whole being, changes our emotions, our mind, our thoughts, what we do, how we react.
Yeah.
So it shows that to be able to worship Allah properly, we should try and work on these type of stresses and anxiety and the triggers of them.
When we have a trigger, it depends what that trigger does to us. Is the trigger helping us turn to Allah more? Because often it can. Is the stress helping us turn to Allah more? Because if it is, there's that.
Like the war-torn countries, there were reports from like Iraq, and they were saying that the children grew up knowing more about the deen during the war than they did prior to the war. So stress, maybe like that in those circumstances, can revive the ummah, just like the flooding in Pakistan. It's there as a sign, it's there as a reminder. So yeah, so stresses can either pull you in or push you away or make you work on yourself. How would you phrase that?
If it's a difficulty that brings you closer to Allah, whether it's stress, whether it's war, whether it's a flood, if it brings you closer to Allah, then it's a blessing. And even if it's a blessing or a good news that takes you away from Allah, then see it as it didn't end up being a blessing, something like that. I guess stress can do anything, and our states fluctuate, don't they? So it's difficult to say that it's either going to take me closer to Allah or take me away. Ultimately, every hardship that we go through, even if it is stress, Allah rewards us, doesn't He? Even for the slightest discomfort, we're rewarded.
So generally, stress and anxiety makes things much harder. So if it's harder for you because you're stressed, because you've got triggers to follow Islam, then you get more reward.
So it could be that somebody's stressed and then they're becoming snappy, but then they are remorseful for being snappy. Then that is ultimately taking them closer to Allah because they are remorseful and they ask for forgiveness.
So where do you draw the line? Because fair enough, you're asking for forgiveness, but if you're snappy today, 15 years later, you're still snappy.
Yeah. So with stress, it's important not to let it go on for It's important to manage it. With everything, it's important to manage it.
How can you manage it if people are not comfortable talking about it, or are open to getting professional help and support?
Our deen of our Islam is what? To be content, to be at peace within ourselves. When you say Allahu Akbar, and this was I think it was this yesterday, I was speaking with a brother. And what is the whole purpose of our salah? What is the purpose of salah?
You surrender.
Surrendering, grounding, what else? Disassociate, what, sorry?
Dissociate from the surroundings.
Okay, which means what?
Becoming present.
Thank you. It teaches us to become hadir, to become present with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Assalamu alaikum. Okay? It teaches us to become present with Allah. Do you see that? Every salah is about khushu, isn't it? Salah is about attaining presence with Allah. But the way we pray our salah, who are we present with? Who are we present with usually in our salah? Everyone but Allah. The Prophet ﷺ said, As-salatu mi'raj al-mu'min. Your salah is your mi'raj. And where is our salah? Mi'raj is what? To the heavens, isn't it? Allahu Akbar, go to the heavens. Where's our salah taking us? Tesco, yeah? Shopping.
To be present, to have intention. There was something else I wanted to say. So often in namaz, our minds start wondering about Tesco and the things we need to do because we don't have a still moment where we're not still enough. We don't have quiet time enough. So in namaz, when we're still, we're like, things actually start popping into the mind that
and
we
the
can
things
actually
you
pay
forget
attention.
the things you forget start popping up.
Yeah, and good ideas come into your mind.
That moment.
Especially mine. When I'm praying, I have some really good ideas.
And then it's really hard to take that idea out of your mind because it's the best idea you probably thought of.
Yeah, and it'll come in namaz because, that's the time that my mind got some quiet. And that happens to people. I know it happens to a lot of people.
So what are the tips for people to start actually becoming more conscious or more present or be in the now? Because they're not really going to read all those books or do more research. What steps can they do? I mean, Eckhart Tolle said, just listen to your breathing. Once you start listening to your breathing, you start to notice the things around you. Once you start noticing the things around you, you kind of snap out of that autopilot, and you're able to think that, you know what, I'm here, I'm right here. What do you think? What are the best techniques that you've learnt or come across?
I think that's a really good technique that you just mentioned, to breathe and, you know, be conscious, actively try and snap out of the autopilot, and then to add an intention, to be intentional. Think, okay, why am I doing this? Really go to town with your intentions, because the you know, the bigger the intention,
The more the reward,
the more the reward. You're really
even if you don't
thinking.
follow it through.
Yeah, because we're rewarded for our intentions. Also, it's really important to check, because this is about stress, this talk was about stress, it's really important to check, what is it that keeps stressing me? And is there a deeper reason for it? Where is this coming from?
Yeah, because it's probably not the child screaming or the neighbor making a noise, or the or your partner always asking or demanding something. There's always something behind that, and there's something behind that, and something behind that.
Not supported? Is it that you're feeling overwhelmed?
Abandoned.
Yeah, abandoned, overwhelmed.
Mistreated.
Yeah, so it depends on what emotion is the stress bringing up, what's behind the stress, and then that emotion has a root cause. How often have you felt abandoned, or what was the other words I said? You know, how often have you felt that in your life? And yeah, so that's the kind of stuff that Brothers of Hair works on, and I support my clients with, to find the root cause of an emotion and then deal with that emotion, and then it has a ripple effect in the rest of your life, which is
Definitely.
really amazing. And I think our people really need to be open to therapy, because there's just, not just our people, but I mean everybody, but especially like in our community,
Yeah,
there's so much
they shy away from it. They want to hide it. They don't want to talk about it.
yeah, and with that we have a lot of issues, you know. We have a lot of expectations, because especially, you know, our grandparents have come from another country, and they had, you know, something, a point to prove, and all this pressure. And even before that, the war, that, you know, when partition and all this ancestral stuff. Actually, this is too much depth.
So, I hope everyone enjoyed our first podcast. There will be more to come. And as we do more, we will inshallah improve and get better at it. This was our very first one. And thank you for listening and staying with us throughout.
And let us know what topics you want us to cover. So this was stress. And we've touched on a few topics, haven't we? Really, intention, focus, all that stuff. So it'll be nice to know what kind of things people want to hear about.
Assalamu alaikum, guys. Stay healthy, stay safe,
Stay present.
stay present. Not the presents you get on birthday, but stay present.